welcome back to Red Devils Talk, brought to you by the Elite Football Show. My name is Haider, but you know that already because you see me every single week. And I'm joined by Ciaran and Joe. Mark is no longer with us. Nothing's happened to me. He hasn't died or anything, so not like that. But he is. He's just doing other ventures, and we wish him all the best. He's still a great supporter of the show. You might see him in the comments from time to time. So yeah, if anyone does ask, that's what's happened. We've got Jamie in the comments. Hello, Jamie. It's great to see you as always. And Heli, of course, my favorite Norwegian. That's right. Even I prefer you more than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and that's saying something. Ciaran, how are you doing today, mate? You've been in hospital.
Yeah, I've been in hospital all day. Got home, got some sleep. Recorded a podcast about an hour ago, which will be probably tonight or tomorrow. Now doing this, and so I'll work ahead, even though I wasn't in work today, so it was grand.
Mate, you're a trooper. I'm surprised to see you on the show. And we've got Joe, aka Tellez, in the bottom. Joe, hello, mate. I feel like I haven't spoken to you all week. Starting my new job, haven't I? So I've just been absolutely, I've just been busy. But how are you doing, mate? And we won 9-0.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. What you're the mate I spoke to you all. You're texting me every 5 minutes, mate. Everyone knows, mate. Everyone knows. He's texting me every 5 minutes, guys. I can't get away from him. Ciaran's, I hope you're feeling better, mate. That's an example of what happens if you hit the Guinness too hard after a 9-0 win. But at least they pumped you out, Ciaran, so that's good, mate. I'm glad you've recovered. But yeah, mate, 9-0, absolutely buzzing about it. Not getting too excited, though, because I still think, obviously, it's like a lot of the players said, to be fair to them, it's on to the next challenge now at the weekend. But you've got to enjoy these. I mean, it's 26 years since the last time we had one of them, mate. I might not be around for the next one because I'm getting on a bit.
For God's sake. Oh man. Starting as the way we meant to go on. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, let's not talk about death for now.
Yeah, let's not. Ciaran's just come out of hospital. Trevor, welcome from South Africa. First time. Thank you for joining. And I hope you enjoyed the victory yesterday. Guys, if you are watching this on Twitter, give it a retweet. We'd love more people to see this. You can also check out the masterclass. We have a Basuma podcast as well. A player analysis is coming out on Friday. I recorded it a couple of weeks ago. But unfortunately, what happened is Haas didn't download it and StreamYard deleted it. So check that out on Friday. But guys, we're going to talk about Manchester United's fantastic 9-0 win. I could not sleep last night. I was so excited. I was so tired going up into the game. And obviously the masterclass after, I didn't sleep till like 2-3 a.m. I was just so excited because you know why, Ciaran? It felt like, as Joe said, the first 9-0 win, or as that bigger win for 26 years, but it felt like Manchester United of old, from first minute to last minute, relentless, clinical, intensity, absolute aggression, which we didn't see in the Sheffield United game. I mean, I like to use the word intensity. Rob likes to use the word aggression. I think intensity is probably a better word, but there was a lot of aggression yesterday. Yes, the red card helps Manchester United, but you can only play what's in front of you. How many times have United had the one-man advantage in the last 7 years? They haven't actually taken advantage of it. We were absolutely prime Manchester United yesterday.
Yeah, it was one of those. Look, the result obviously flatters United a bit much, but it was something that I don't think we've seen in a long time. Even in some of the ending seasons with Ferguson, you didn't see it as much, that once the game was over, the team just kind of relaxed a little bit and just kind of got the win. But we would see other teams like Man City, we saw Chelsea at times, Liverpool, that would just keep putting the pressure on, trying to score more goals. And we've seen even this season that when we've had wins there, the players have just kind of relaxed and just taken it. And the problem with that is you can see 1 or 2 goals if you're 3-0 up and suddenly you're in a pretty nefarious situation. And that's what I think changed yesterday. You only have to look at what happened in the last 20 minutes where you could hear Solskjaer telling the players to go up and score more goals. And that's a big thing. Like you said, in terms of, you say in intensity, Rob says aggression. For me, the word is always mentality. What's the mentality of your team? Do you have that elite mentality to go out and blow teams away? Because that's what the best Manchester United teams used to do. That if you can go out and blow a team away, go do it. You were shown by Tottenham earlier in the season what it's like to lose those type of games. You now need to, especially in the time it happened with our forwards that weren't firing on all cylinders, and getting goals is always a good recipe to kind of turn fixtures around. When you had two poor results and poor performances against Arsenal and Sheffield United, I think that was the perfect remedy for the United team.
Yeah, absolutely well said. Guys, get your comments if you want to hear all of them. If you're here for the first time as well, welcome to Red Devils Talk. We do this show every single Wednesday. It's a podcast. We also do the masterclass, and we have so many other more shows. So hit the subscribe button if you enjoy what you're seeing here. Lokesh, good to see you as always, my friend. Joe, what was so impressive is, as Ciaran said, it's a mentality thing, isn't it? Now, I said to you guys in the group chat about a week ago, or sort of beginning of the week, this was a very important week for Manchester United. Beating Sheffield United, you need to win these games to win the Premier League. We fell at that hurdle. Going into the Arsenal game, I felt like we weren't playing with enough intent. I felt we were rushed in the final third. I said on the masterclass, United were patient. That was the key. As Ciaran said, Ole was saying, go for more goals. I love that. We haven't seen that for years. If this was Jose Mourinho, 1 goal, shut up shop. That's how it would have been. What United did fantastically well yesterday is they moved the ball quickly, firstly. And secondly, what they did as well is that they were patient. Now, a lot's been said about the player down, or 1 player down, or 2 players. Southampton had 2 sent off. But all those things considered, we were ruthless, weren't we? Absolutely ruthless. What does this do for Manchester United's mentality? For you, have United now gone to that next level where there is clear progression? Now they're back with that fear that teams have for them. Do you think that is the case, or do you think perhaps maybe we're getting a little bit too excited?
Well, first of all, Haider, I'm not going to sort of devalue that game anymore because of the 10 men, because if you remember back earlier in the season when Tottenham spanked us 6-1, I don't remember too many people adding into the analysis that Martial was sent off early in that game. So, I'm not going to worry about it, with this game. So I don't worry about the red card too much. The team still needs to be broken down. And as we know with Southampton, they're a hard nut to crack. They're one of the hardest working teams. And if one team will make it difficult for you when they go down to 10, it's Southampton, because of their work rate and energy that they can bring to the game. Granted, their team was a bit depleted last night, and obviously everything conspired against them.
Was it though? I mean, I looked through it. They had obviously didn't have Romeu playing, but they still had pretty much their full back four. They had a young kid at right back, so no Kyle Walker-Peters. Still had Ings, still had Che Adams, still had Armstrong, still had Gineppo. They didn't have Walcott. Yeah. They weren't as depleted.
Look, they still had a more than strong enough team. And to be honest with you, going into that game, Haider, I was worried because I'll be honest with you, I'll hold my hands up. I wasn't a big fan of the team, the starting lineup, although I don't whinge about it. I wasn't a big fan of it. Even more so when they went down to 10 men, I thought, even though it's really early in the game, would it be stupid to make a change even at this stage? But fair enough, Ollie stuck with it. But you asked me then about, obviously, have United taken that next step now, and are they a team to be feared? I suppose we'll not know the answers to that really until they're in this situation again and they have the opportunity to do this again, Haider. But obviously, that's what it's all about now. It's consistency, because when Man City are in these positions and Liverpool are in these positions, they do it every time. If they've got an opportunity to put a team to the sword, they put them to the sword. They never, ever fail. And that's what, we've seen it once from Man United. Love what we saw last night. Let's see. I don't know when the opportunity will be when we play 10 men again for a long period of time, or if we go 3 or 4 up nice and early, we'll have an opportunity to put a few more goals on the team. I don't know when it'll be, but that's when we'll know, I think, if they are at that level, if they can keep doing it again and again and again. Everton might be an opportunity at the weekend. If they get a couple of goals early, Haider, there's no reason why, Everton, the form's a bit up and down. There's no reason why they couldn't go and get 3 or 4 in that game as well and just stamp their authority. And then if they do it back-to-back games, you're starting to think, actually, they are at that level.
Spot on, Joe. I'm going to come back to you because Jonathan's got a question here for you. But Jonathan, welcome. Nice to see you here, mate. He said here, we still haven't got the consistency of champions. Personally, I think we've continued to show progress. Spot on. And he's saying here as well, 8 times. And this was actually a statistic that surprised me last night. Someone put it up in the comments. And he said, 8 times you've scored 5 or more goals under Ole. 8 times, guys. I don't even remember. I didn't even realize it was that many times that United scored more than 5 goals. That's brilliant. But Jonathan's asking you, Joe, What didn't you like about the 11? So I'm just going to start quickly about, and you're right. You're never someone that has a whinge, and there was a lot of people on Twitter that were whinging like incessantly. Now I'm one of the biggest Paul Pogba fans here. Everyone knows that, but it was so obvious why Ole rested him. He's played about 7 games in a row. Like at the end of the day, trust the manager. He's the one that sits there. So he's there overseeing training. He has all the data analytics. He knows which players are ready to play again, which are not. I just think while I'm not the biggest fan of McFred, before they've even kicked the ball, people are having the whinge. And I just don't get it. Like, there's all these Twitter managers. Look, we're all guilty. Before the game, I usually comment. I didn't yesterday. Reason why is I saw a lot of people getting upset and complaining. The team won 9-0. At the end of the day, what do we know that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't? We're allowed to comment on it. But people just need to reserve judgment for the end of the game, because the amount of times we've all said, oh, great lineup. The one against Sheffield United, Matic and Pogba, the double pivot that I quite enjoy, but they went and lost that game. So fans just need to rein it in a little bit, support the team, trust the team. And if we lose, critique it. Don't abuse. Don't go and say Ole out. And I've sat here and not been the biggest fan of Ole, but you know what? 100% credit to him yesterday. I support him, support the team. And Dan James scored delighted. Martial scored delighted. I don't have agendas, because if you have an agenda, when you're wrong, you care about that more than the team winning. And I just can't deal with that.
No. Well, we've had this conversation before, haven't we? And the amount of times we've looked at Twitter when we've been watching a game, during a game, winning, and you're looking at it and you're thinking, why are people tweeting this? Like, it's almost like, enjoy the victory, enjoy the win, savor it. It's like, as Man United fans over the last 7 years, you can't even take wins for granted, let alone winning titles and trophies, you know what I mean? So it's like, if you get an opportunity like last night, enjoy it. But just to go back to Jonathan's question, I think the whole thing for me was, it's more probably to do with the stigma around it, Haider, of the McTominay and Fred pivot. I don't really want to see that at home at Old Trafford, against the team outside the Big Six, if you know what I mean. But again, having said that, what I will say is, and where I will give Ole credit, I'll give the team credit, I think he adapted it well once they went down to 10 men, because what he did is he obviously told McTominay to go and play as like a number 8 or like
Jamie said
even a second
8 last night.
Even a second 10 to Bruno, and he just left Fred there on his own because they knew they'd be able to deal with the threat. And the only other thing I would have said about a team as well is I've been thinking for a while now. I think Marcus Rashford could have been left out last night. I mean, in hindsight, I'm glad he didn't, because he got a goal, which will be crucial for his confidence. I think he got an assist as well for the own goal. So in hindsight, it was a good thing he started. But there was just one or two things where I just thought, I don't know if I'd have gone that way. But look, you can't complain, because a 9-0 victory shows that Ole knows more. And the other thing that Ole knows, what we don't know as well, which is really important around this time of the season, Haider, is the stats, the statistics around people's fitness and their sort of, where they are body-wise in terms of risk of injury and things like that. So he knows at this stage who can afford to play 90 minutes. I was sure at half-time or after an hour Bruno would come off last night, but obviously he didn't. And that's because they obviously feel he's got that 90 minutes in him. That's data that unfortunately only them are privy to. And we can argue on Twitter and give our opinion on Twitter, but at the end of the day, whatever people claim to know, whatever players people claim to be their favourite, they'll never know that data that Ole's got there, and that always becomes a factor at this stage of the season.
I don't understand look, everyone has players they like, like I said, I obviously, you'll know, I really like Pogba. I'm a big fan of Mason, but just because I like a player does not mean that that's going to provide balance to the team. In the simplest and the most simplistic way possible, it's about balance right now. Everyone would love to, and this is a thing that does my head in so much, and this is not having a go at Van der Beek, but people really think that you can go and slot him in at number 6. It just makes me so angry, because it's just what he did at Ajax. So many different factors to that, guys. And I said it last night, and look, I understand some people sometimes they maybe don't consider the factors, for example, the different pace in the Eredivisie compared to Premier League, the amount of territory and possession Ajax used to have, how high up the centre backs used to play a high line, and also the physicality. Ciaran, when we're looking at all these things, these things are sometimes forgotten about. And also the fact that, when you have a double pivot, that doesn't mean you're playing 2 DMs. That's another thing. I don't know where this has come from. I maybe it's FIFA. I don't know. But suddenly you play 4-2-3-1.
I'd probably fall into that trap, Haider. Like with my worries about last night's team, I probably was one of those people. But there's a difference between thinking it in my head and then just feeling like I have to slap it all over social media.
It's just those things where people think automatically you go to 4-3-3, you're more attacking. That's not how it equates. That's not what it equates to. So I just think sometimes we all have opinions. I'm not saying I have an opinion, but team sheets named. Just get behind the team. And then when we're winning, you see as well, I mean, Abdul's got a good comment here. Hi, Abdul. Nice to see you, mate. Usually we have 5 or 6 players versus a lower attack versus a lower team. But yesterday we were so aggressive. We attacked with 7. It was 2-1. Exactly. That's exactly how it is. Both fullbacks pushed up. And it was absolutely brilliant. United were ruthless. And they played with intensity, with pace. The fullbacks were absolutely fantastic. I do want to touch on the fullbacks. 2 players who I have criticised a lot. Wan-Bissaka's been someone who, in particular, I've criticised. What I've liked from Wan-Bissaka in the last 4 weeks or so, I would say, especially in the Fulham game, he was getting a lot of abuse, and I don't think he was that bad. What he's doing is he's getting forward, he's making those runs, and he's driving with the ball. And then you've got Luke Shaw as well, who just looks like the best left back in the league right now. Some of those crosses he's put in, his overlapping runs, he looks fit, he looks explosive, he looks dynamic, and he's taken everything that Ole wants him to do and taken it on board. He's using his brain as well. He's taken in the tactical instructions. Both players were so key to Manchester United winning that game. That first goal was just, that was brilliant. And that's what you want to see from your fullbacks. Look, they were down to 9 men, but United played with intent. And the fullbacks led the way yesterday for me.
Yeah, that's what you want from your fullbacks. At the end of the day, and we've been saying it for the last few months, is that you need balance in the fullbacks where they're doing their job defensively, but they're also doing what the manager's asking. And my criticism for Shaw, especially at the start of the season, was the fact he wasn't being direct as a fullback, which he needed to be. When he was getting into the positions where we're now seeing him cross the ball, he was stopping and pulling it back instead of actually trying to beat his man. Now we see him try and beat his man and put a cross in. And look, when you do that, you give your strikers a chance to score. And the fact that Aaron Wan-Bissaka is identifying the space, and then that for Wan-Bissaka's goal, that wasn't the first time we saw him go in there. He had a header early on. We saw him do it against the likes of Arsenal and Sheffield United as well. So he's obviously being told what to do, and he's actually taking that on board. And look, he's still a young player. I think it's going to take time for him to develop. I don't think he's ever going to be that explosive right back, but he can definitely be a right back that can really, really help. And look, I personally think you're seeing some of that development really kick on. On the point that you mentioned, Haider, about people overloving certain players and then they either don't want to criticize those players or other players that they want to criticize. I've made it very clear that one of my favorite players on the team is Mason Greenwood. But at the start of the season, I was saying that he didn't deserve to be playing because he wasn't playing well enough. But now you look at him, he's being direct. He's being actually better without the ball than anyone on that right wing that we've had. Without the ball, Rashford is the only thing he's done is try and keep it wider so there's more space. But you see Mason trying to be more direct, try and set up for his teammates. I was actually shocked he didn't score yesterday because he looked that good. But again, he's getting assists. He was putting it in for his other striking partners. And I said it to you guys in the comments on the masterclass last night, is personally, if you've the choice, let's say it's a big game, if there's a 3-striker attack, who I want to see Rashford, Cavani and Mason, because they're the 3 that I think link up the best out of all of our attacking options. And look, I know there's so many people that will want to say how great Martial was. And look, there was people throwing their toys out of the pram in the first half, basically because Martial wasn't playing, and now scores the goals and everything else is forgotten. But you have to remember it's an overall attack and what can suit. In the second half, the game was open. So that suits Anthony Martial, and that's why we saw the best from him. But again, it wasn't like it was where he would be able to create for himself. He was getting in behind. The passes were really good. Bruno I thought was very good in the second half, even though a lot of people will say he didn't play particularly well because he was like, what was it, up until the penalty, he wasn't really that much involved in the scoring aspect of it. But you saw what he was doing with Martial. He was trying to play those intricate balls in because he saw the defense was struggling. And that's what you need. For United fans, I think we need to calm down a little bit. Is some people are freaking out over the smallest things. You can criticize a team for playing poorly against Sheffield United or Arsenal, but that's fine. But don't go and say, we're coming 10th, or we're not going to make it into the top 4, or this player is terrible, this player should not play for the club. It's ridiculous. We need to get away from this kind of reactionary thing. There's games every 2 or 3 days. You're going to lose some, you're going to win some. We are seeing a Manchester United team develop before our eyes, which we haven't seen in previous years. And for me, we spoke about it. I don't think any of us truly believe that United are actually going to be there to win the title at the end of the season. So for me, it's about development and keep this going, because if you can get towards the end of the season and you've pretty much guaranteed Champions League football, your players can then enjoy the last 2 months if they are 6 or 7 points behind City, because look, City look a different beast right now. So all we need to do is just what actually the team are saying. Focus on ourselves. Focus on our next game. Don't look too far into the future. Don't be planning for 2-3 weeks in advance. Take one game at a time. And I think if United fans do that, they'll be able to enjoy the season way more than freaking out over, the next 4 games, we have these teams to play.
Yeah, so some fantastic points. So I'm just going to read out Abdul's comment quickly because it's a good point about Van der Beek. I don't want to go too much into Van der Beek because, every time he's not on the team sheet again, there's a hysteria. Because he's just shiny new toys. And look, he's talented. He's intelligent. He's got great spatial awareness. But as Abdul says here, when he was at Ajax, he played with 10 men that play one-touch football. We don't play that style. Plus, he has probably the most informed number 10, or at least the number 10 with the best numbers and return in a whole year. And he's probably he is a high-scoring midfielder, isn't he, guys? Yeah, he's just behind Ronaldo.
He's probably one of the best number 10s in world football. And
yeah, 100%.
The problem with Donny is exactly what Abdel says there. The fact that he doesn't actually suit a team that isn't one touch because he's not good enough without the ball, or when he does have the possession and he needs to actually do something with it, unless it is that kind of quick touch, that kind of Pep at Barcelona style, it doesn't really suit him. And it's a good option to have. Like, he's not a bad player, but I can't see, unless he improves over the next year or two, him actually starting for Man United. Like, we've all said, maybe he'll come in for Pogba when Pogba leaves. I fully believe that when Pogba leaves, we'll just end up buying someone that's in a similar ilk.
He's not a passer. That's
the thing. So I think that if Pogba goes, you will just see somebody else be brought in. It might be someone cheaper, but just suits that style more. Because I think what we've seen is Donny's a good extra player to have, because look, we were all complaining about the lack of depth last year. So he adds that, but I don't think anyone's going to get confused when you look at Pogba and Donny that there's a reason why Pogba has started 7 games in a row prior to the last game, and Donny can't get in the starting lineup.
Yeah, very fair points. Joe, I'm going to come to you. Kieran's obviously mentioned Mason already, and a lot of people in the comments, Aaron is one of them, absolutely impressed with Mason. I thought he was fantastic. He looked direct, looks sharp, looks like he's got that confidence back. Look, he's one of those players where if you had the ball drop to him and you had one chance to score, you'd be betting your house on Mason Greenwood. He's an absolute natural finisher. But something he has improved to his game is he has improved his crossing. He likes to obviously cut back in on his left and when he's off the right and cross it in. But if you were going to choose our best front three, now Cavani came in, and you remember when he came in, I was really excited. I've always liked Edinson Cavani, fantastic at Napoli. His numbers don't lie at PSG, but something we did say at the beginning of the season is that he misses a lot of chances, doesn't he? We know this. Jeremy Smith came on this podcast, the French football journalist, and he said about, remember this, 1 in 5 chances he scores, big chances. That's how unclinical Cavani actually is. But he got his goal yesterday. His movement is fantastic. Proper number 9, as Jonathan said in the comments just here. His movement into the channels and the way he lays off and holds the ball up is absolutely exemplary. And people say he's old, and yes, he's had injuries, and you can't play him week in, week out, I don't think. But you can near enough do that for him. Jamie Vardy is a similar age. I know Vardy is a very he peaked late, didn't he? He played Premier League football late, so he's got more longevity to his game. But looking at front three now, Marcus has to be on the left, in my opinion, because he looks more comfortable there. His telepathy and his relationship with Shaw is fantastic. Would you be going for Rashford, Cavani, Mason as your starting point? Martial got some fantastic goals yesterday for his confidence. Massive for him, and I'm delighted for him. But he's got to earn his way back in. I don't see how Ole can go anything but that front three that started yesterday as a front three against Everton and as his first choice front three.
Yeah, right now on form, Martial doesn't get in the team. I mean, you'd say, look, if it'd be wonderful if he could discover that left wing form that he had when he first come to the club and that he had for half a season under Jose, because that'd be wonderful. But it's almost as if I don't know what's happened to him when he's on the left wing. It's almost really alien to him these days. He's forgot how to play that position, and I don't know whether it's because he doesn't like being put out there because he feels like he's had his nose pushed out a joint, or whether it's just genuinely the chemistry just doesn't work for him on the left anymore. He's literally forgot the muscle memory that he had to play that position. So it's a shame. But I mean, as a number 9 at the moment, he doesn't come close to Cavani in terms of what he can offer this team, because what Cavani offers this team as a number 9 is different to all the other strikers that we've got. And that, for me, is why he starts at the moment. His movement is so clever. He picks up positions in games where he can score goals out of nothing. Yes, he scored his goal yesterday, but, and you could look at the Arsenal game. I think he missed 2 gilt-edged chances in that one, didn't he? One that was like a sort of across the box that he didn't quite finish. And also, I think towards the end, he had like a bicycle scissor kick thing, didn't he? That, you'd expect him to score as well, that he didn't put away. But the thing with Cavani is he's in those positions for that. If Martial's there in that Arsenal game, those balls just get played across the box, nobody there, they probably get cleared away. And that's the thing about Cavani. He puts himself in positions to score goals. His success rate might not be great, but on any given day, when you need a goal, he's the type of person that's going to pop up in the areas where you need him to be at the crucial moments. And I think we'll see that between now and the end of the season. I see Cavani, the type of player he is, scoring some really crucial goals for us by just getting something on a cross, by just putting himself where it hurts, and even just maybe coming off a bench in a game like he's already done this season and scoring crucial goals by just being in the right place at the right time. So yeah, for me, Rashford looks good again on that left, to be fair, helped by Luke Shaw, who's been in fantastic form, which we've talked about. And, I feel a little bit for Mason because, yes, he struggled on that right, but that right is a poison side for United at the moment. It's not nice for whoever has to play out there, so I do feel for him. But it's nice to see because I feel like Wan-Bissaka's getting better out there because Mason's doing well, and Mason's probably getting better because Wan-Bissaka's been... They're almost trying to help each other through it. They know that they're both struggling with the aspects of the game that they need to do. But somehow, by hook or by crook, they seem to be pushing each other on, which is great.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Guys, let's move on to... We've got a question. Guys, get your comments in. We want to hear. We'll put them up on the screen. Ciaran, is this team more suited now than ever post Sir Alex? And we're talking about the teams that we've seen. I mean, look, we had a team with Jose Mourinho that came second, but it wasn't pretty football, was it? But do you think that this team is now more suited to take advantage of the talent it's got and to be, or is it currently the best side that we've seen since Sir Alex? Because when you're looking at the football that's been played, United are top scorers in the Premier League. That blows my mind. Yes, 9 goals in one game is an absolute freak result, but that was massive for our goal difference as well. We're now on 19, City are on 24, and I think they've scored a couple tonight, so that will be 26. United aren't keeping many clean sheets. I know people will say, oh, well, we have only conceded, I think, 6 goals since Boxing Day, but it's not necessarily the amount. That's not the issue. The issue is that when it's crucial moments, then United are letting goals go. Look, we lost only 2-1 to Sheffield United, but that's still a big defeat. So do you think that this team is the most exciting, and is it your favourite team? And is it the best team since Sir Alex Ferguson left?
To most of those questions, I'd say yes. It's definitely the most exciting. I look at this and I was kind of, like I mentioned, I was going through a podcast talking about what Chelsea are currently going through and what's the difference between short-term success and long-term gain. And I think United actually have both, where we have the makings of a very good team this season, but also a team that can grow with one another, and adding in a player or two on a yearly basis can really push this team to greater heights. And yeah, it's a lot better. Look, we can talk about that Mourinho season until the cows come home, but like I'd rather this team coming in third or fourth than that team that came in second that was off by a mile. At least this team gets you out of your seat and you're excited about them. And it says a lot that you actually want to like your team. For years, we had a Manchester United team that just had players that were unlikable. And it was a chore to watch. And that was the first time, I think, as a United fan, I've ever had that. And look, there was years under Fergie where we looked pretty terrible as well. Especially as we saw the likes of Chelsea coming into the fore, where all the talk was about them, and but like the football always remained good, even if the results weren't always there. And we see that under Solskjaer. Yeah, the results aren't always going to be there, but for the most part, the performances this season have been good. You can pick out a couple of games where they haven't. If you're looking at who or what side was the best post-Ferguson, unfortunately, the best team that we had post-Ferguson was the first year that David Moyes was here. Because you look at the players in that team, you still had, well, correct me if I'm wrong, we still had Rio, Vidic, and Evra.
Were they in decline, though?
Possibly. I think Rio definitely was. I think if Ferguson was still there, Evra and Vidic are still two key cogs to that team. Van Persie is still a big key cog to that team. Rooney's probably gone. Hernandez is still a big player in that team, and Carrick was still playing well that season as well. So you still had a base for, like, you look back and some of those players in that team, you would say, okay, that's good. Like, how many years after that did we ask for, why can't we have a right back like Raphael? Because we had so many terrible decisions that were being made.
Jamie's comments exactly that, Ciaran. I can name players who would be good in this side under Ole, who left Depay. One of them, I wasn't the biggest fan of Depay, but actually he probably would have been an option on that, right? I know he plays centrally now, but I think he probably would have fitted into what Ole's trying to do.
This may not be the most popular opinion, but I actually prefer the way Depay used to play prior to him joining Man United than he does now for Lyon. I used to watch Holland a lot because I don't know why, it was always one of those teams I loved watching internationally, because it was in that stage where they were really good and he was coming through, and he just reminded me of a very raw Cristiano Ronaldo when he first joined. Not the same, he would never get to the same level, but the way he liked to play was direct. He wanted to take on players. He came to United and it just disappeared. It didn't look like he was doing that. He would have been one player I would have loved for him to happen. But the other thing that we forget about under Moyes, Wilfried Zaha was in that team as well. Like, if Wilfried Zaha doesn't get sold, then he's probably our right winger for the past 5 or 6 seasons.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's the biggest shame.
And he played under Ole at Cardiff. Remember, Ole took him on loan.
Yeah, that's the biggest shame, I think, because look, and this is where I say the whole idea about short-term gain, or short-term success and long-term gain. Ferguson knew he was leaving, but he still signed Wilfried Zaha because he knew that he was going to be a really, really good player. He already was a good player, but that he could improve on that. The problem is, I actually compare that season under Moyes to what we've actually just seen under Frank Lampard for Chelsea, is that he couldn't deal with the big personalities in the dressing room. He couldn't deal with the big squad and how he could actually fit some of these players in. And that's the biggest issue. Like, when you look at the actual team, yeah, that first one under Moyes was probably the best. But the problem was Moyes tried to stick to any bit of positive thing that he got. The minute Januzaj played well, plays every single game. He shouldn't have played every single game. He should have eased them in. He had a really good start.
As Aaron says here.
Yeah.
Changed too much too fast. Got rid of the backroom staff.
Same thing as Lampard. How many Chelsea fans complained that Lampard changed his tactics way too much? Moyes had a side there that all he had to do was be a strong leader and come in, bring in people that were around the club already, even if it was a past regime that was with Ferguson so that they know the club, and he probably would have done fine and he would have been a manager for maybe another season or two. Because the problem is he tried to change everything. He tried to make it all about himself. And often with players that have been at a club for a while, they don't listen to leaders that want to change everything. I think Solskjaer was lucky in the fact that he came into a system where people that were within the club knew things had to change. And he was able to do that. And I've mentioned it in how he's different to what Lampard was, as he became a central part of everything that happened at Manchester United. Louis van Gaal tried to do the same. His football was just very dire, as one of the comments mentioned earlier, that I don't think we scored a goal in the first half for about a year. So that was the only difference. But Van Gaal had the same kind of the outlook that Solskjaer has, that he was actually trying to build a squad going forward. I think if we actually did keep Van Gaal for another season, you probably would have seen a much better transition from him to the next manager rather than clip him by the knees when he wins the FA Cup.
Yeah, I think where David Moyes went wrong, Haider, was coming in and sitting Rio and Vidic down and saying, "Look, have a look at how Phil Jagielka defends."
Apparently that's not true. Apparently that's
true.
Well, I'm going to roll with it, mate, because I think it's hilarious. I can just imagine your first day, you got the two best defenders in the Premier League for the last 10 days, and you sit them down and you say, "Yeah, watch how the master Phil Jagielka does it."
But it was even little things like the United players under Ferguson had one of the days during the week where they had like food that they actually wanted to eat. I think it was to do with chips or something like that.
And he took it off the
menu.
And
he completely took it off. Like, if you're going to do that, you had leaders in that dressing room that could really police the dressing room by themselves. Ferguson didn't need to unless players weren't performing. He had his leaders there, and those leaders were still in the dressing room. But the problem with Moyes, and I think he learned from his mistake, and he's doing it now at West Ham, where it's basically you need to have your leaders in the dressing room that are able to police it. Solskjaer has that. He has Bruno. He has Maguire. He has Pogba, who you can tell there's a lot of players that gravitate to him. You see Rashford now. So they have these leaders that are building up. And it actually makes the manager's jobs a lot easier because he doesn't have to constantly be looking at, what are people feeling in the dressing room? You look at other rivals. Spurs definitely don't. I would be shocked if they have that under Mourinho because of such a tight ship he runs. You could see there's certain players in that Arsenal team that could go astray if results go bad. It's the same thing we know for Chelsea, that a manager has to kind of micromanage because they don't have those players that a manager can trust to lead a dressing room. Well, I think United actually do have that.
Yeah, absolutely. John, I'm going to bring you in. I mean, Lukesh has got look, the comments are Moyes was the wrong choice. We knew that already. As soon as he got appointed, I was like, why have we appointed him? What? Because he's Scottish. Not every Scottish person is going to be the legend, the greatest manager of all time.
It should have been Ancelotti.
It should have been Ancelotti, yeah. Or if you were going to go from Mourinho at that time, you go from straight after, not after he's finished. Like even in 2013, 2012, 2013, 2014, when we got knocked out with the worst decision in footballing history when Nani went up for the. I
hate that referee, and I'll never forgive him.
Every time I see him, like when Rio was like in his face, but every time I see him, I get angry. And we would have won the Champions League that year. I'm convinced we would have won it that year.
Didn't he ref one of our games in the Champions League this year? I'm pretty sure. Was he maybe the PSG game or the Leipzig one? But yeah, like we can go through how bad of an appointment it was. The fact that we had people that suggested to the club to go and interview Jurgen Klopp, Carlo Ancelotti,
and another one, as Jamie saying,
Pep, and Allegri was one as well. And they decided against interviewing people and just went with Moyes. And that was the biggest problem, is if you're going to make such a monumental change, if you interviewed everyone, you say, I think Moyes fits the culture that we want to have here, fine. Then you made a balanced decision. It would have been the wrong decision, but at least you showed the fan base that you didn't just pick a manager that the predecessor said you should pick. You should have interviewed your Manchester United. You should be interviewing lots of coaches for the job. And then whoever actually shows it. It's the one thing I actually don't like about football is the fact that a team interviews pretty much one manager and give them the job. You look at any other sport and they look at potential managers to be brought in. You look at in the Bundesliga, the amount of brilliant managers that are there that have come from basically nowhere. If you actually interviewed them and got what their thoughts were, you might actually see this is a good manager, or maybe it's a good manager in the future. Or you can have it where you're going to hire someone, but you can suggest to that manager, look, we had a really good interview with this guy here. Maybe you should have a chat with him, see can you bring him on the coaching staff. I think that's a way forward to try and, because the way I would like to see it is, let's say Ole was going to be leaving if he had a bad run of results. If he had a younger manager in there, so like a few years ago with Nagelsmann when he was coming through, at least then you have someone to take over that it just kind of passes the reins and it's not trying to completely change things. And I think that's what United actually have to do when they do change Mike Phelan, because over the next couple of years it will happen. I would actually prefer United to go out, interview a lot of candidates from La Liga, Bundesliga, Liga 1, and actually see what their football ideals are. Let Solskjaer be in the interview process and see who he might actually like to be in his coaching staff. It doesn't need to be an English coach. It doesn't need to be an ex-Manchester United player. It just needs to be someone that actually thinks different than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So then they can actually share the ideas, and actually it means that you have a seamless transition. It's always so bizarre when you look at other sports and that's how they do it and it works well. And it actually sets up a sports team for more prolonged success.
Yeah, some fantastic points, Joe. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about you.
No, I've got nothing. I think Ciaran's covered everything, mate. So we can end it there. It's been brilliant. Thanks.
Aaron's saying here, Joe, I'll push this towards you, but I was going to read out a few more.
Great. Thanks.
You think Moyes was actually chosen on the fact he was out of contract, swayed the board? Just wondering. Jonathan, I'm shocked that I'm reading that you wanted Poch, because we've had many debate, I'll say, a friendly debate about Poch. I'm really interested to see how
Jurgen Klopp for me was the outstanding. I don't know why anyone's mentioning any other names. If you take yourself back to 2013, Jurgen Klopp was the outstanding. The only thing United had to do was pay the money and get him out of whatever contract he was in at Dortmund. You look at the connection that man builds with a football club. You can only imagine, and I feel a bit dirty for saying it, obviously, as Manchester United fan on the Manchester United channel. But if we're talking football and you're talking about a manager that's made for the club, he's made for Liverpool, because, I mean, they will argue they have the same sort of connection with their club as we do with United. But he's Manchester United all over. He would have been absolutely loved by the Stretford end.
The thing is, Jonathan's saying here he never wanted United. It's not that it was United's club.
I don't agree with that.
No, the point is, the issue is, hold on. The issue is that when United sold the project, and it's what we talk about continuity, right? So that's what you hope that, let's say Ole should get a new contract. I would be very surprised. And just to add to Jonathan's point about how Poch does at PSG, I think he's going to do well there. I really do. I think it's the perfect club for him to go and manage, win some trophies. And then, the world is his oyster after that. But with Ole, I just think that the continuity is so important. He's putting so much good work and the foundations are here. Now, give him another contract, right? He's out, Ciaran, it's 18 months, I believe. I read here Jamie saying you wouldn't take Pep even now. I would take Pep. I would 100% take Pep. Like, whatever anyone says. What I don't understand is that, look, right now, he's playing without a striker. I know Jesus has come back. He's sorted out the defense. Yes, he has a lot of money to spend, but he's an incredible manager. He's one of the greatest as well of all time. Let's not get fall into the trap of fans with these wild statements. I'm not saying this to you, Jamie, but I'm just saying in general, oh, Pep's rubbish. He's just about money. No, he's not just about money. Come on, let's be a little bit more fair. We might not like City and Liverpool, but let's be fair and let's be objective. They've got fantastic managers. But what we have got at the club is someone, as Lakesha said in the comments, who is absolutely fantastic when it comes to man management. Joe, I'm going to come to you on this. Fantastic on man management, understands the club, understands what environment there needs to be to breed success, understands what mentality you need to have to play for the club. And all these things shouldn't be overlooked. Now, is he the most experienced tactician? No. Is he the best tactician? No. But when you've got the players playing for you, when you've got you have got the support of the board as well. They do support him. I haven't seen them support a manager like this since Sir Alex. When you've got all these things put together and they are giving him time to try and do it, they're not giving him the resources, I would say. I mean, I put out a tweet yesterday. The amount of players are shifting out. They're not going to replace these players. And that's another issue for another time we can talk about. We can talk about it in the summer when it's a transfer window. We can bang on about the Glazers. But all these things considered, Ole, for me, has definitely been the best manager since Sir Alex has gone. He's the most inexperienced manager out of all the four. He's the one with the worst CV. I'm just going to say that. I'm not saying his CV is terrible, but he is the one. But he's got the most tune out of the players. He's bought the best. He's played the best football. We look the best team since Sir Alex. He is the one that's actually brought back the United that we love.
Yeah, look, if anybody wants to devalue or underestimate what man management actually means, go and take a look at that Leicester City side that won the league. Because that Leicester City side that won the league, on player quality alone, probably shouldn't have won it. On paper, shouldn't have won it. But what you had there, you had a group of individuals that loved Claudio Ranieri and were willing to run through brick walls for Claudio Ranieri. And you can't underestimate his man management in that title-winning season and an example to how far it can take you if you get it right. If you can cultivate a good dressing room environment, that for me is a perfect example, because that Leicester City team won that league because of just sheer will, heart, and desire. They had some quality players, don't get me wrong. People like Mahrez now are still doing it very good. Kante, we know what Jamie Vardy's about, but sprinkled in amongst that was some very, players who were just the previous season just avoided relegation under Nigel Pearson. So I think it can take you a long way, man management. And if you get it right and you can cultivate a good dressing room atmosphere, it can get you, well, I can't put a number of points on it because it's not tangible, but, it can be the difference between winning and losing a lot of games. So it's a massive feather in Solskjaer's cap, and it's something that he should be rewarded for at the end of it. Not rewarded for, but sort of applauded for, if you know what I'm saying. Because it's not a given. You look at what's going on at Tottenham at the moment. Everything with Dele Alli, it seems with Mourinho, even Gareth Bale. When you don't cultivate a good dressing room, when you go a team like Spurs who win games by the odd goal, it doesn't take a lot for those odd goal wins to start turning into draws and into losses. And that's what we've seen recently, because I think there is some unrest there in the dressing room. So, look, we know that Ole's going to need some more quality in this squad. You talked about it there. We'll talk about that more in the summer. We've got rid of some players out of the club, which was an important thing to do this January and last summer, and he's done that. But we need to bring in more quality, but mix that with a good dressing room environment like Ole's got, and hopefully whoever's next manager comes in and takes that up as well, then we're going somewhere as a football club. You're starting to see proper development and progression.
I do think Jamie's point here, the 18-month contract is suspect, but I expect Ole to sign another contract. But look, we're still in, where are we? I don't even know what month it is anymore. It's been January was so long, it's February now. Yeah, we're still in February, and a lot can happen. But United have shown, if they'd lost yesterday again, that would have been worrying, because when they lose a few games, it becomes a streak. But United have shown a good mentality, and that it was just a blip. Hopefully, Everton is huge. They can turn up and beat us, or they could be absolutely terrible. They're just so unpredictable right now. But look, Ciaran, I'm going to go and talk about something a little bit different for the final topic, and it's about Kieran McKenna. There's a lot of questions in the comments about him. Now, Aaron's saying here that hasn't United's push of late been geared towards buying youth? Sorry, isn't that more of a long-term saving? maybe a strategy you could say in the transfer market. I absolutely agree with that, by the way, and that's why I'm not convinced. My post yesterday, I don't know if anyone's seen it, but if you haven't, just have a look. And I basically outlined the players that have come in, the players that have gone out. Now 9 players have gone out in the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in 3 years. Come in 3 years. That's not good enough. 14 have gone out, 3 are on loan. But the point is that United are using the academy, which is good, but you cannot focus on bringing in just young talent and then expecting them to go and play week in, week out at a club like Manchester United. But let's park that because we can talk about that another time. I want to talk about McKenna. Now, McKenna was very highly rated when he was at Tottenham, and I believe he's the under-16s coach there. Came to Manchester United. He's still very young. He's in his 30s, but he is the one, by all accounts, who is the one who runs training. He's the one that sets the style of play. He's the one who's got the ability, the tactical nous. That's what comes out of Carrington. Is it any surprise that now, since he's settled, because I believe he was in Jose Mourinho's. Was he in Jose Mourinho's coach stuff? He was. He got promoted. Do you think there's no coincidence since he's settled in the role a bit more, and he's taken more of a, I would say, hands-on approach in United's training and tactics? It's no surprise United are now playing better football, because I always say this, and I love Mickey Phelan, because Phelan, under Sir Alex Ferguson, Manchester United won titles, and Phelan is number 2, but the football was dour. It was pragmatic, and that's why when United go and bring in a new number 2 eventually, do you think they should promote McKenna? And you were talking about almost coaching McKenna so that he could slot into the maybe the manager seat one day. Look, this is all just hypotheticals. I'm not saying McKenna's going to become Manchester United manager, but do you think that's actually a possibility, and that's what United should be doing? Because that's where you get that continuity, don't you?
Yeah, it's a really good topic of conversation, because when he first came in, I think he became the under-18s manager when he came in under Mourinho, and they played some amazing football and they had some amazing players. That was the team where you had Mason, you had Angel Gomez, Chong was there at the time, and look, they were a bit older than some of the older teams, and they were blowing teams away. And the style of football was what we were missing from the first team, and that's kind of what got people talking about Ciaran McKenna. Yeah, he came into the Mourinho one, and we started to see the kind of changes that he's made. The thing that we'll find out about is when Phelan does go, if he's not given that job, it means that McKenna's probably a better coach than he is a manager. Because again, what people don't actually know and they don't really understand is that these coaches get reevaluated on a yearly basis, that most of the backroom staff don't have contracts for 4, 5, 6 years. It's usually the assistant manager that has a little bit higher, but that the coaches are actually evaluated, and they go through an evaluation process, and they actually are ones judging their performance first. Then they talk with Solskjaer, they talk with Woodward, and they go, okay, so what's the plan moving forward? How can we add to the game that we have? So the fact that McKenna is one of those that does take part and is the main one at training, Ferguson had people like that we actually never knew about. The fact that it wasn't always like we saw before with Mike Phelan, he never did it for Ferguson. It wasn't Carlos Queiroz for them or Rennie Mullenstein. They kind of oversaw it, and Ferguson was just kind of that overarching figure, but there was other people that were there that were running those training sessions. The one thing people have always said is McKenna does have a great footballing brain. He knows exactly what the team needs to be doing, and that's why you see when United are struggling in games that the person that Solskjaer is talking to is Ciaran McKenna. There's a reason for that. So it's definitely a possibility, and it's one of those that I think having him there for a couple of years is perfect, because it means that you get all that time to actually judge his performance and what you think long term. If you don't believe he's to be a manager of the club long term, you keep him on the staff, because you don't have to promote him unless somebody else is coming in for him. But I would still be one to say that if there's a chance of Phelan leaving in a year or two, I'd still be interviewing other candidates that don't know what's going on at the club, because you want to have different voices in the room. Because if you have everybody that agrees with one another, there's actually no progress. And that's why Ferguson always changed who was on his coaching staff, because he needed that change. You don't want your players to be too kind of comfortable. You need it to change. And if United know there's a period of time where there's a possibility that Solskjaer isn't brought back, maybe it's not this contract, maybe it's the next one. I personally, on that front, I think at the end of the season he'll probably sign a 2-year extension. That's what I think. There has been rumors around that coming.
I think he'll get another year, because I think
it's difficult though, because when you only give someone, it's optics, and that's the reason. Because first of all, you can't have a coach or a manager go into a final season, because they're basically a lame duck manager then, and the players know it. If you only give them a 1-year extension, you're basically saying we're not really sure if we believe in you. If you give him a 2-year extension, he basically has 3, and you're kind of showing, well, you're still the manager for the next 3 seasons. And look, if it goes wrong, it's not a big deal. Like, the amount of money that they would be spending isn't that high compared to other managers. So it's not like when we extended Jose Mourinho, where we were paying him one of the highest salaries in football. We don't pay Solskjaer one of the highest salaries in world football. So I don't think it's a big issue to give him an extension. I actually think, in terms of helping Solskjaer continue with the management style he has, you kind of need to, especially if he does get in that top 4. But yeah, going back to it, I still think it's a good idea to always be interviewing outside candidates to bring in, even if it's for a lower level. Like, you look back on, it was probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when Thomas Tuchel was the under 21 manager for Mainz and became the head coach there. From there, played against Dortmund in the under 21s, and when Klopp left, he then came in. It might be a little bit longer in terms of years.
It's what they do in Germany.
That's what they should be doing. They should be bringing in people that, okay, they're not going to be ready now. They're still young, but that you actually believe, okay, maybe in like 5 or 6 years' time, they're actually going to be a quality coach. Because look at some of the top coaches in Germany now. 5 or 6 years ago, we probably haven't heard of the majority of them. And I think that's the difference. And that's what you see teams like Bayern Munich and Dortmund, and now we're starting to see it with Leipzig and some of the other popular German teams, that they're actually set up for the future in terms of their management. Like, when Nagelsmann goes, someone else will step into Leipzig very, very quick. It's no surprise. And I think in England, we still are stuck in the way that it all comes down to the manager, that if it's a young manager, you need a very experienced assistant manager. That's not the case. Football is becoming a very young sport, and a lot of the players in these teams, the top teams, want a young team. You look at United, you look at City, you look at Barca, Real, they're trying to build with younger players, and you actually need a manager that kind of gets those players. And that's why I think we're seeing, like, you look at Chelsea now, where they're talking about possible managers that could come in after Tuchel. There's not a single one that's an older manager, even though a lot of the great managers, we've mentioned Ancelotti, Allegri, for example, but everybody talks about Julian Nagelsmann and some of the other young managers yeah, exactly. So I think for United, we've seen the development. I just think it's good that we need to do that also on the coaching staff too, which is good, because we brought in, I think some of people have mentioned that we've had McKenna, we brought in Carrick, we brought in Darren Fletcher, all young in their management game. But if they can build up the experience under a side that we're seeing develop under Solskjaer, I think that's a brilliant thing for the long-term success for Manchester United. And at some point, Phelan will go. I suspect that Phelan probably stays for another year, and then he probably will get replaced, because he's getting up there in terms of his management age, and it's usually around the time that you start seeing people retire.
Well, what can I just say as well? Hey,
I'll ask a question here, because
okay, yeah.
And then I'll let you have your point, because there's some great
fine.
up there. But Jamie's
that was going to be my point.
This is mate, great minds, guys. Some fantastic comments, honestly. absolutely brilliant. And another comment here from Aaron saying, we actually spoke about Darren Fletcher when he joined, Aaron. So I think I can't remember what episode it is. It's maybe 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah, a month ago, I think.
Kieran gave a really, we don't have time today to do it, but Kieran gave a really good in-depth view on Fletcher and the impact he's actually had. And I think he has made an impact. But look, Joe, we've obviously got the question from Jamie, if a championship comes in. Does it worry you a little bit, though, that there is this notion in England that you have to go and get a big manager? But then the other thing I would say as well is that maybe someone is just good as a number two. Like, there's so many fantastic number twos. Carlos Queiroz, Rennie Millenstein's been my favorite one. Look, I'm 25. I'm not an older United fan. I've only known Sir Alex, and obviously then the absolutely chaotic last 7 years. But for one thing I do know is that you can be a fantastic tactician. You can be a fantastic number two, but being a manager, you've got to manage so many different aspects and facets of the club. Is there that worry that actually McKenna's a fantastic manager going out and coaching players, but not everyone has the charisma of, let's say, Jurgen Klopp. Everyone has the man management of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. No one has the the absolute resolute and resilience against the media like Sir Alex Ferguson. A lot of these number twos don't have it, and that's why they fail. And so would it be too much of a risk to go and bring someone like McKenna in? And then the other flip side is actually, do United actually go and get the best manager out there, but not necessarily the oldest and one with the most trophies, but the one that's going to fit that long-term vision? We talk about director of football. I don't want to go into that. But, Nagelsmann is made for Manchester United, by the way. But isn't it beneficial to have Nagelsmann with, let's say, you still have McKenna in the coaching stuff? Like Kieran said, the continuity. So the continuity remains with one or two, maybe Carrick and McKenna are here for years and years. Because I don't think Carrick's ever going to be Manchester United manager. From what I see from him, I don't see and I love Michael Carrick. He's one of my favorite players of all time for Manchester United from when I was growing up. But I don't see the personality there from him. I don't see being able to manage. I think with Ole, you always knew that there was a bit of a steeliness to him even when he was playing. So do you think that's a better way forward rather than risking it all on someone like, let's say, like McKenna or someone who's come in through the ranks? Because you have to still remember this is Manchester United Football Club. It's not like any other club to manage. There's so many different facets to it.
Now, I always say, Haider, the best example for me of an assistant and a coach and then a manager is Steve McLaren. He's the one I always go back to. Steve McLaren, apparently on the grass, is absolutely phenomenal. One of the best coaches you'll ever see. He was obviously involved in Fergie's treble-winning side. And Ferguson will give you a glowing reference of Steve McLaren. But you look at his managerial career, and it just hasn't happened. And I think a lot of that, from what you hear from players who've worked with him and clubs that he's been involved with, it's just his man management skills are not quite there. And that's you've sort of answered the question within your question. It's all about man management. When you become a manager, the key is in the word. It's management. It's managing different aspects of the club. Like you said, there's loads of, especially when it's Manchester United, there's so many different aspects, but it's managing people as well. You know what I mean? When you're a coach, you're setting up drills, you're delivering drills, you're getting players to do what you want to do on the training field. What you're not doing is dealing with a player if he's got a relationship issue, or dealing with a player if there's a problem at home, or just dealing with players as human beings. You're not doing that as a coach. So it's a different beast altogether. With Kieran McKenna, I think the question that come up there about championship, I was going to add to what Kieran said by saying it might not be United's decision to make, because if his coaching keeps on going the way it is and he keeps on impressing people, sooner or later, maybe even a Premier League side may start to look at him. I look at teams like Brighton, what they've done with giving Graham Potter an opportunity. If they lost, Graham Potter, they might look at Kieran McKenna as a good project for them, if they think he's a good coach. That type of team. So not even necessarily a championship team. So it'll be interesting to see how that one develops. But I think if United have the choice, they will keep Kieran there, because I think, he is a fantastic coach. I think when Mourinho, I think it was Mourinho, was it? Kieran might be able to correct me out. I think it was Mourinho who brought him to the club from Tottenham. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Mourinho said at the time he thought he got the best young coach in the country, and that's coming from Jose Mourinho, who is obviously one of the best managers / coaches that we've seen in the history of the game. So I mean that's saying a lot. But I think going back to what you're saying about giving him the job as manager, though, I don't see him getting the job next Haider, more because of the brand of Manchester United. So I think United will, because of the brand, they will almost feel obliged that they have to. If you look at the names that they've already employed, they don't make sense, really. People like Van Gaal and Mourinho, they don't make sense from a footballing point of view. We've talked about that before, but from a branding point of view, they made a lot of sense because, it's a big name in the management world. And unfortunately, I still think that they would err on that side because it means a lot to them, as we know, that side of things, the marketing side of things. So, unfortunately, I don't see Ciaran getting it next. I think he would definitely be wise to keep him involved, though, because I think you don't want to lose your backroom staff. We've talked already about what Moyes did. That didn't work out. So I think
it's so important, isn't it, to have, and it doesn't have to be an ex-player. And this is the point. You need to have someone DNA.
I'm not interested in creating an old boys club here, you know what I mean? I'm not interested in it being Mates United or anything like that. It's not what it's about, but you want the best people for the job. And like Ciaran said on that episode a few weeks ago, I think he's absolutely spot on. He did a great profile of Darren Fletcher. And Darren Fletcher is not just there because he's an ex-United player. Darren Fletcher has earned his opportunity to come into the first team coaching setup, and fair play to him. And that's what I'll say about United. I think under Solskjaer, they no longer suffer fools around the club, Haider, both in playing staff, coaches. You have to earn the right now to be part of this football club. And that is a fundamental sort of foundation that Solskjaer's put in the ground, that no longer will people just get a ride off this club. If you're going to be here, you're going to have to have earned it.
Yeah, there's two little points there that I have. Oh, I'm hearing myself in the background. Yeah, I think the 2 points, and I'll go to the whole idea that if McKenna gets poster, like a championship club wants him, I think the one thing that actually works in United's favour is what has happened recently with Frank Lampard, that you can't just go and decide to be the manager of a team. You have to pick and choose where you go. You just look at Solskjaer. He was the manager of the under-18s for United and then got the opportunity to go to Cardiff, which was a terrible job to take. I remember he interviewed for the Blackburn Rovers job. That was also a bad one if he would have gotten that too.
Yeah, the owners, the Venkis, they're terrible.
Yeah, so the problem is that I think young managers actually are better off staying the course and just, when they're ready, is to go for it. Is don't jump at the first opportunity. And that's the biggest issue. Also, I wouldn't be surprised. We're seeing now at Derby County with Wayne Rooney that he's the manager. He's probably going to be there for a couple of seasons. Don't be surprised if at some point, if Solskjaer's still there and Rooney's doing well, that he actually gets brought in, because look, Rooney has made a lot of plans to be in Manchester long term. Think about it. His son is with the academy. He has a big stake in the Manchester United Foundation. He still does a lot of work for Manchester United, even though he's the manager of Derby County. So while it's probably not the best idea, it's going to be an interesting one to see how Rooney does, because he's definitely someone that the board actually really like, even though they had their problems with him with his agent when he was a player. He's still someone that has a lot of respect at Manchester United and is now getting experience to be a manager in the Championship. And it's not going to be the same as what happened to Lampard, who was there for one season and then he's been brought in. I think he's getting his chance and earning more experience. And look, if Solskjaer is successful and he can keep this coaching staff together, and let's say Rooney wants to be there, let's say it's when his son is getting a little bit older and wants to have the whole family there, there's no reason why I don't think that could happen. It's the same thing with Darren Fletcher. He wasn't a head coach anywhere. He got some of the experience and then came back into the coaching staff. I know it's not conventional to go from a manager position to the assistant coach, but if Solskjaer wants to replicate what Ferguson did. That's exactly what Ferguson did with Steve McLaren. And so I think that it's another option out there to interview in. I wouldn't be doing it this year or next year, but if he's still Derby manager in 3 or 4 years' time and he's been relatively successful, then it's definitely the chance. Like it comes back to the point that we need to get the most rounded and kind of skilled coaching staff. You need it to be young as well, because you need them to be able to bring all these fresh new ideas. But also, we do need to bring in a defensive coach. It's the one issue I think we're having. I mentioned it earlier on. I saw a very good interview from Sean Dyche from Burnley. If they ever let him go, if he was able to come in as a defensive coach, how good that would be. Because you look at that Burnley team since they've been in the Premier League, in terms of the players on the team sheet, is probably one of the worst in the Premier League. But the structure that he has in place is amazing. And that's the style of defensive coach United need. It'd be interesting to see what Darren Fletcher's kind of impact would be in the midfield side of that. But I still think we're having a lot of issues defensively. And unfortunately, one of the coaches that is in charge of that is Mike Phelan, and it just doesn't look like it's been getting much better. And look, that's the reason why we are talking about this as well, because it seems like over the next 2 years, it is inevitable that there will be changes that are made. It could be that, like we said, McKenna can get pushed up and it means there's a spot open in the coaching staff for somebody else. And maybe you get a very coveted young defensive coach that you bring in. And I think that's probably a good thing for United to be aiming for over the next 3 to 4 seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Jamie's asking who is a defensive coach. I believe it is Mike Phelan.
Mike Phelan.
He is the one that, and he was under Sir Alex. What I will end on, guys, I mean, it's been a fantastic debate. I really hope you've enjoyed it. And I will say this, that what we're trying to do with this show, Red Devils Talk, is we're trying to sort of step away from match reactions. We're trying to go into topics a little bit more with more depth, with more analysis. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And if you have any other topics that you do want us to discuss, just chuck them in the comments or comment under the post to do that. So thank you very much for all your comments. And that's it. Ciaran, thank you very much for joining me as usual. Joe, thank you very much. Loving the top knot. Guys, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let all your friends know about this as well. We are growing and we'll promise we'll always put out the best content. And we'll see you next time.